Hello guys, welcome to the Trading for Profits. First of all, let's start up with the market analysis for today. So when we can see at gold, we can see it's trading around $3,006. And when you can look at Bitcoin now, it's trading around 111,000 USD. So today I'm with my guest, who is Sonya. Incredible. She is one of the first women who have sparked a huge interest in finance in terms of Bitcoin adoption, in terms of cryptocurrency. So can you please tell us more about that?
Sure. Yeah, nice to be with you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Look, I got involved in Bitcoin, not crypto, in 2013. Actually, my husband told me he's going to this thing called the Bitcoin meetup in late 2013. I think it was December 2013. And I was like, what's a Bitcoin meetup? You know, I want to come with you. So I went with him to this Bitcoin meetup in December 2013. And it was about three different people sitting, about 3 or 4 people in this dark place there by Claremont Railway, sort of in a really weird office. And yeah, it was a bunch of people talking about Bitcoin. And it was obviously 3 men and me, so I was the only woman there. And they were I come from a technology background. I used to be a web developer, so I found it very interesting because they were talking from a technology point of view, what Bitcoin solves, which is a double spend problem. And they were talking about the fact that they had read the white paper, and this was sort of an innovation. Since the internet, there was nothing bigger than this, and it solved sending money across the internet without duplicating that money or creating a copy, so the double spend problem. So coming from a technology background, I found that very interesting. And after that, I was completely fascinated by this technology, the technology and the cryptocurrency, not just the cryptocurrency itself. So I was a developer at the time, and I said to my husband, I really find this fascinating. I want to go and really create a business or something around this because I was getting bored being a web developer. So he said to me, well, look, Sonya, go and study it for 6 months. Make sure you really are that interested. And then at the end of 6 months, if you're still interested, let's create something. So I studied it for 6 months. And after 6 months, I was like, this is the future. This is incredible. And I really, really studied it, But there wasn't a lot of information in 2013. Yes. I remember trying to find articles, and there was hardly a picture of a Bitcoin on Google Images. You could hardly find anything. It's so funny. And then after 6 months, I said to my husband, I have to do something. And we talked about it, and he said, well, look, there's so little education about this, especially in South Africa, and even globally. Why don't you start something in the education space? So I said to him, well, let me, start doing courses or something. And at the same time, while we were thinking of that, we thought, well, why don't I start events as well? So 2 things popped up in 2015. Like just a year after my interest, came to a head. In 2015, I started Bitcoin Events. This is a company that hosts the longest conferences in Africa that deal with crypto and blockchain. And then I started the Blockchain Academy, which taught initially the banks, funny enough, in 2015 were our first clients. Yeah, they were already on top of it in 2015, the Standard Bank and ABSA in particular.
So when the banks around that time against even cryptocurrency, even Bitcoin?
Yeah, very anti. But there were certain people within the banks who knew that there's something here. So you always find 1 or 2 people in a bank or in a financial institution who get it. Maybe the CEO doesn't, but the CTO will maybe get it because he's more technical. So we had literally the CTOs contact us. That's exactly where it came from. Or a developer within the bank and said, please just come do a day session and train C-level executives and tell them about this. So we did a lot of that, and I found it fascinating. We traveled to Joburg, go to head offices. And so, Blockchain Academy grew. We did 13 different courses, focused on developer training, Ethereum and Bitcoin, on beginner levels, on trading, and then Pacific executive type training for the banks, just to get the board members and everyone up to scratch on what Bitcoin was. We even went to Swaziland to teach the central bank there in 2016 or 2017 on what this was. So early on, people were aware. It wasn't sort of, it was in the 2015, 2016 range where the banks, the traditional finance companies were looking at this. And then, yeah, we just grew from there, and Blockchain Academy went on for quite a few years to train institutions, also individuals. And we were based at the Bandwidth Barn, and we did a lot of in-person training, which was a lot of fun in those days. It was very new, and yeah.
So in terms of that, I'm sure even starting a business is difficult. And you're starting a business in something that's more like a foreign language. Because people don't know, especially around 2015, they didn't know about the blockchain.
Yeah.
So what difficulties did you encounter during that phase?
Look, a lot of skepticism. So, I'm a technologist. I'm actually always been a technologist. I like coding. I like, technical things. And I understood it from a technical level, but when you go to a braai or you're in a social situation or you just talk to someone quickly, for an hour, which is very quickly, they don't get it after an hour. They are very skeptical because they come from the fact that money, traditional money means something, is backed by something, is issued by a central bank. Money today is issued by the South African Reserve Bank, for example. And here's Bitcoin. It's not issued by an authority. It's just code that it exists and anyone can partake. So it just blows their mind. So we dealt a lot with people who just were in disbelief. And then we dealt a lot with people that were in fear of this technology. How was it going to disrupt them? And how were they going to be affected in terms of profit and revenue and customer base? So there was a lot of that fear and trepidation towards this technology. But we always came from a position of, we're not trying to attack you, we're not trying to disrupt you, we're just here to provide the information, take it or leave it. A lot of people got very aggressive with us when we used to do training. It was quite strange. They would sort of attack you for giving them the information because they would say, but Bitcoin is backed by nothing. There's no utility. Why would anyone use Bitcoin? Now, obviously, 10 years later, fast forward to today, it's completely changed. You've got from President Donald Trump to his crypto czar to, there's the Genius Act and the Bitcoin Act and all these bills coming out. So, there's even sovereign wealth funds where countries are buying it for their wealth fund. So it's completely different. But those were the early days. So you asked me, what were we dealing with? We were dealing with the fear of the unknown and fear of being disrupted. And people don't like change. So as soon as you tell them this is going to affect you and it's going to change things, how you do things today, they are hesitant and they resist. But today they're starting to accept it. They no longer say to me, what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain? We passed those conversations. They're now we are doing it, we are busy creating pilots or proof of concepts, things like that. So the conversation has changed a lot over 10 years.
So now it's more about the adoption phase of things. So in terms of the adoption phase, I think last year, the governor from here was in a conference. There was a talk about the Bitcoin.
Yes.
There was in the panels there was the founder of Coinbase and
Brian
other.
Armstrong. Yeah.
Oh, you remember?
Yes, I saw that.
So I was quite confused about he didn't not just accept Bitcoin. He was so ignorant of the fact that this currency that exists now. It's not. Why should we hold it? Why should we, as South Africa, buy even Bitcoin or involve ourselves in Bitcoin? Do you have any thoughts of that?
Yes, so I watched that, and it was a South African journalist, Gareth Jenkinson, who works for Cointelegraph, who asked him a very pertinent question. And he asked him, a lot of countries are adopting Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. Yes. The US is looking at it and passing the Bitcoin Act so that they can no longer sell off the Bitcoin that they've seized from defunct exchanges and things. And in addition to that, add Bitcoin to the reserves. So it was at Davos, I think the conference, which is a very well-known conference. And then could South Africa potentially also hold Bitcoin as a strategic reserve? And his response was something along the lines, why would we accept Bitcoin as a strategic reserve if we can hold mutton and beef and other things?
Yes. Okay.
Which was a little off-center, but I think it comes back to education, right? Yes. A lot of people in South Africa, unfortunately, still lack education, and that's why we provide these events. We invite government, we do invite them to come and listen to our talks. They don't always come. They don't really want to speak. I feel like they're still hesitant to speak publicly about this. But we've had the South African Reserve Bank speak about what they're doing because they're quite progressive. They passed regulation in 2022 in this country, which provides very clear guidelines of what you have to do if you are dealing with crypto. But yeah, I think that just comes back to education. And unfortunately, there are still people in power and very powerful positions who don't always understand what crypto and blockchain can do.
So I think you should just bring them to your classes as well. So since you mentioned something about you when you were starting to found yourself in your interest on the blockchain, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So what resources did you actually use in those 6 months particularly?
Yeah. Look, there was a little bit on the internet, but what I did is I started following people like Andreas Antonopoulos. Remember him?
Yes.
He was one of the leading voices in 2015, 2016. And we actually invited him to South Africa, and he came to talk at our event in 2016. So he was, for me, one of the best speakers we've ever had because I admire him greatly. So I used to listen to his talks. And if you go back to his videos on YouTube, you will see about 5 people. There's one particular talk he's doing, and it's a massive conference room, and there's all the chairs are empty except for 5 people.
Yes.
And that's what I remember. Like that's how it was. It was no one was really interested except that 5 nerdy. Either they were libertarians, or they were developers, or they were the nerds in the room. They were interested. So there were people like him, and there were others, but mainly him. And then also, just there was some information on the internet, and obviously reading the white paper. And then there were 1 or 2 people in South Africa. Not 1 or 2. There were quite a few in Cape Town. So through the Bitcoin meetup, we used to go every 2 weeks or so. And the person who drove the meetup was incredibly knowledgeable. So he was sitting there for an hour teaching us about this. And till recently, well, not till recently, we now run the Bitcoin meetup group. We took it over from him, myself and my business partner, Theo. We now run the Cape Town, it was called the Bitcoin meetup group. We changed it to the Cape Town crypto meetup group to be a little bit broader. But we run that, and he established that in 2013. So he provided a lot of education for us. But there wasn't much, there really wasn't much until now.
So the key factor here is much more on the education part of side.
Yeah.
Because I'm realizing that there's also like skepticism.
Yeah.
So in terms of the skeptics, let's say for instance, you want your family to be well invested and want them to use a particular currency, let's say Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So how do you talk to someone like your mother to understand? Because they absolutely they don't know about technology, they don't know about, they don't even know how to use modern banks, some of them.
Yes.
So it's a massive issue. So how do we get to...
You've got to make it into a story.
Okay.
So I always believe stories is the easiest way to explain something simply. And if you can't provide a story, then you don't really understand what you're talking about. So I would say to my mom, or to the lady that worked for me, is a good example. So the reason I actually got into really passionate about this, because a lady that worked for me from Zimbabwe, she was earning not that much as a cleaner working for me. And she said to me, can you please take me to Standard Bank? And I need to do a transaction to a family in Zimbabwe. And she was sending really not a lot of money to Zimbabwe. And the bank charged her 10%. Okay? Of that little amount, she had to pay 10%. My heart broke. We were standing there. It was an hour in the queue. And then eventually... And then I just remember this Bitcoin conversations we were having at the meetup. And I kept thinking, we need to give her Bitcoin. We need to make sure she has a Bitcoin wallet. She needs to get her family in Zimbabwe to have a Bitcoin wallet. But they're in a rural area. How are they going to get the Bitcoin out into a bank? So it was very complicated then, but now it's easier. So anyway, that really made me think, how can we use this technology to send fast, cheap payments? And that's when I got involved in the third company, which I'm also co-founder of, which does exactly that. We do cross-border payments using not Bitcoin, something else, XRP.
Can you touch more on that?
So we created this business, and I said to my husband, it was my husband and I and someone called Mark Churnside who started it in 2015 as well. So I started 3 businesses in 2015, Bitcoin events for the events, Blockchain Academy for training, and this company called iDATCO. And basically it was to enable people to send fast, cheap payments across Africa, particularly people who don't have bank accounts and who are being, literally, I don't want to say the word, but they are being taken to the cleaners through various payment gateways and institutions to do payments to their family in rural areas. And so we created this company which does exactly that. To today, we're allowing people to make payments throughout Africa using either XRP or stable coins, because we issue stable coins on the XRP ledger. So it allows you to issue these stable coins. So we have a ZAR stable coin. We have a Malawian stable coin. We have a Nigerian Naira stable coin. And people can use that to go across borders.
Okay, so in terms of that, I would just want to know about the process. Let's say I have a brother in Malawi. I want to send him money.
Yeah.
And in regards to sending money, they receive the money, let's say so. Yeah. So how do they spend it? How do they use it?
Yeah, they would need to create a Zargo account, and you would create a Zargo account. You would fund our Zargo South African bank account, maybe with 10,000 Rand, for example, and then you change that into Malawian kwacha. Where's your brother? In Malawi?
Yes.
Yeah, Malawian kwacha. He gets the stablecoin representation of the Malawian kwacha, and he can then sell that Malawian kwacha on our exchange for Malawian kwacha. Okay, and basically deposit it into his bank account. So we allow him to withdraw it into his bank account in Malawi. Yeah.
All that happens within minutes.
Within minutes, sometimes seconds. So seconds, yeah, not minutes. So XRP allows you to do final settlement. There's no like 10 sort of confirmations on the blockchain. Final settlement within a fraction of a second. Depends on the volume, how much you're sending, and you can batch it and even go faster. But yeah, it's a fraction of a second for a fraction of a US dollar cent.
Because it's been a major issue, that thing, because when you want to send money, it usually takes days.
Yeah.
Not even to talk about the currency deflation.
Yes, exactly. So you can, instead of you saying, you want to buy Malawian kwacha, you could buy US Tether, so USDT on our platform. And you can send US dollar, so you are not, because Malawian kwacha is very volatile. Yes. You've had some severe problems with the currency there. You just buy the US dollar Tether on our exchange, you send it across to him, he sells it for Malawian kwacha in Malawi and into his bank account in Malawi. So that's how simple it is. If he doesn't have a bank account, he can just keep it in USDT, just keep it circulating in USDT.
That's why it's even much more stable.
Much more stable. That's why stable coins is so huge. And the XRP ledger, people don't know this about Ripple's technology. It's not just XRP. Their technology, the ledger, lets you issue stable coins on the ledger. It's superb technology. It's incredible technology. So we've issued over 13 currencies on their technology.
So does that apply the same for, let's say, for entities like companies? It's still the same process?
Yeah, so Zargo allows individuals and companies. It's actually a B2B business. It's not really B2C, but we allow individuals to onboard. But it's basically meant for companies who want to do payments to their branch in Malawi, for example. They're in South Africa, but they want to pay their employees in Malawi. They use our platform.
So it's all borderless as well?
Well, look, it is borderless, but there's still rules and regulations in South Africa.
Okay.
And there's still, you have to adhere to certain rules and regulation and reporting in South Africa. So as a business, you've got to report on when you do cross-border transactions. So today when you do a Forex transaction, your bank does your reporting through something called a BOP code. So the balance of payment code. So similarly, there are some rules and regulations around that using cryptocurrencies.
So since you already touched on regulations, so how are regulations like in the current market? How are they affecting the adoption of XRP ledger, even other cryptocurrencies as well?
Yeah. Look, in South Africa in 2022, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority put down regulation and said anyone that's dealing with crypto as a broker, as a custody service provider, etc., like an exchange, needs a license. It's called a crypto asset service provider license. And I think there's been 134 issued of those licenses to date.
Oh.
Something like that. Yeah,
only 134.
Yeah, I think there were 300 applications. I might be wrong, but there was quite a lot, over 100 now being granted. Some are still pending. But that provides clarity. So then if you have that regulation, you know what you can do, what you can't do, what KYC you need to do, what anti-money laundering you have to put in place. So Luno, for example, any of those exchanges, they have to adhere to what the FCSA says. So you get an FCS a number that you put on your website, and you're now an accountable institution. So you have to do certain things to keep that license in place. Yeah.
Okay, nice. To wrap up things up, so I just wanted to know more about if, let's say, I have no knowledge, I want to get started. Let's say I've listened to the show and I'm really interested in starting my Bitcoin, whether it's crypto journey. So how do I actually get started?
Look, there's so much on the internet. You know, like today, you
let
go
me
to
make
YouTube.
it even much more clear in terms of resources. Yes.
I mean, look, I follow certain people on YouTube. I started off following a lot of people, and over the years, I found there's so much noise and there's so much misinformation. So be careful, and there's so many scams. So be careful who you follow. And so I follow maybe 5 people on YouTube now. I've used to follow probably 20 different people. I've now unsubscribed because a lot of it's just nonsense, and they have agendas. They want to promote their show and make money, so they say certain things. They say this crypto is better than that crypto because they have an agenda. So you've got to follow people like macroeconomists. If you're looking at the price of Bitcoin, it's different to the technology. So if you want to know more about cryptocurrencies, then go to YouTube, follow macroeconomists that also chart the stock market, that follow gold. They don't just follow crypto. So you get a big, broad understanding of the market, and then crypto's place in the market. If you want to understand blockchain and the use cases, then that's not really the YouTube follow, like the macroeconomists. That's more the guys that are building stuff. So go look at what the Ethereum community is doing. You know, go follow the people who created Ethereum. You know, Gavin Wood and Vitalik Buterin. Go follow them. Go to Polygon, for example. Also, great blockchain technology. And look at those guys, whether it's on Twitter or at the conferences, their talks on YouTube, what they're saying about the technology. Because there's 2 streams here. It's basically the cryptocurrency price and speculation, or it's the technology and what the technology can do. They're very different people. The people that you follow on the technology side, they hardly trade. They don't trade crypto or speculate on crypto. They're building. They're serious guys. And the guys who are trading are more the guys out to make money. So it's a very different type of mindset.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having you, Sonya, today. And I really appreciate it. So I'll just wrap it up.